Yeah, so anyway, what we're doing tonight, I have this fic is part of the alt-epilogue continuity that I started with negotiated consent, which I started as a spite fic. Bucky knows this. I don't know if I've probably talked about it with you as well, Momo. This was negotiated consent was the fic I wrote because I hated the way Jade and Rose and Kanaya were treated in that one update that I won't talk much about. And I wrote like an alternative where it starts off at the divergence for Meat and Candy, goes a different direction, and follows like the general universe of the epilogues pretty closely, but doesn't follow the tone of the epilogues. So it's more like it's less like divergent than my other AU, but it's more like I don't know. It's about the characters like the other stuff, but it's less like it goes in less of a different direction. But I decided that I was going to write more of it. And yes, exactly, Self Squad. So this is, and the second in this series is a very explicitly not safe for work story, which I will probably never read on stream because it is smut. It is literally just smut. I think it's well written smut, but it's still smut. Too spicy, yes. It's explicitly sexual. Cool. Welcome to the stream, Kika. So this is the third in this series. None of these really require having read the others. The only conceit required is that this is after Act 7 and Meat and Candy didn't happen. What happened is June was on a picnic with Roxy and Callie and threw up instead of choosing one of the two food options and spent the rest of the day in bed, and neither choice was made. So the continuity is more like straight down the middle. And negotiated consent was all about Jade and Kanaya and Rose starting a relationship. This is not about that. This is a story that's about Terezi and Roxy and gender and mental health stuff. I will trigger warning right now. It has discussions of suicide in it. It's not a like depressing story that just gets worse. It's not the epilogues, but it does go to some fairly dark places. Specifically chapter 5. Yeah, 5. I'll warn you before we get there. It's one of those, like, it goes to bad places and then bounces back. So it's not finished. I don't know how long it's going to be. My guess is probably relatively long. But I'm juggling this with Plasticine Soul, which is really long. So, and if I get done with this and people are still on, I've got a couple of little, like, fun things to read just for fun. Anyway, so this is Ways of Being. This is the third work in the Born of Want series. I won't bother with the tags. There's a lot of stuff going on here. A lot of gender stuff, a lot of like dealing with feelings stuff. There's also narrative banter, just like with negotiated consent. In an alternate Earth-C where June Egbert never made the fateful choice to indulge in meat or candy, a long-awaited friend returns from her search among the stars. When Terezi Pyrope comes back from her quest for Vriska empty-handed, she turns to June for comfort in her time of grief. Comfort turns to the ignition of the embers of feelings that both of them left unspoken for years. Now June must face the fact that her feelings for Terezi and Roxy are complicated, made even more so by Terezi's unresolved feelings toward Vriska and Roxy's own struggles with their identity. Chapter 1. Home Again, Home Again. Oh great, this horse shit again. Don't you get tired of doing this the last time? And I saw what you wrote before this. It's right there. Tagged and properly categorized, yes. Disgusting. An absolute pile of filth if I ever saw any. You should be ashamed of yourself. Why? Being ashamed isn't really my brand, you know? What are you gonna ruin now? I feel like I can reach out and skim what you're thinking. See all the places your stupid little brain wants to go. All the little narrative paths you think will... Wait, what? Seriously? That's what you're going with? Did you just have that idea, like, just now? What the hell? The accent is Bucky's. That I all credit to Bucky. They're the one that came up with that, and I just basically copied it. It's a wonderful Dirk accent. It's the best Dirk accent. June liked to go out at night and stare up at the sky, at the pinprick canopy of velvet black that stretched above her and into the infinity of the cosmos. She didn't know the names of the stars because no one had bothered to give them names yet. Yeah, he does. To be fair, she hadn't known the names of the stars back on old Earth either, so the effect wasn't as dramatic as it might have been. But there was still a kind of ill-at-ease feeling that came with the knowledge that she was staring up into a different sky. She was alone this night. Sometimes Roxy would come out and join her. Together they would sit under the starlit expanse and hold hands. Sometimes more than hold hands. Usually more than hold hands. June blushed at the thought and wrapped her arms around herself. Roxy was busy tonight, doing something or other related to the Carapacians. She and Jade had been spending a lot of time working on some kind of big reservoir project. June missed Roxy. Not like she wouldn't see her again in a few hours, but June loved sharing this with her. Even though neither of them knew jack shit about stars, they both appreciated the raw, unfiltered majesty of it. Heh, we're also apparently both big fans of fucking outside. June's face went very, very red, and she was suddenly glad that no one was around to see. The boldness of the thought, that was something Roxy was more comfortable with, and June wasn't sure she'd ever be. Still, it was a nice thought to linger on, at least sometimes. June smiled to herself. A speck of light burned bright on the canopy, streaking along. June realized that she was witnessing a shooting star. She couldn't remember actually having seen one of those before on Earthsea, so this felt important. I'm supposed to make a wish, right? She shut her eyes. I wish they'd come back. She opened her eyes. The dot of light had grown in size and was traveling lower, glowing red-hot as it blasted through the atmosphere. A meteor? Was that the right word? June couldn't remember the distinction. Jade would know. A big chunk of rock that had survived the trip through the atmosphere and was going to crash land on Earthsea. That hadn't happened yet on Earthsea either. Well, not to June's knowledge anyway. She figured it could have easily happened sometime in the last year or so, given that so much of the planet was essentially unexplored. That's gonna hit hard. It was roaring in over the horizon now, burned bright, then dim red, then cooled to invisible, but June could still hear it, close enough that the whistling of the object as it flew along the distant trees was clearly audible. And that was something. It wasn't falling like it was supposed to. A brief panicked thought hit her. What if... And suddenly, it became very important to know where the object was going to land. June stood up and drew into herself. She felt herself lift off the ground in a swirl of displaced air. Focusing on the distant sound, she willed herself forward at speed. The ground dropped away, and she was into the cool night air now. The world growing dim and far away, and only the speckled blanket of sky and whistling of that faraway maybe meteor to guide her. She pushed herself forward, wrapped in the breeze, and carried forward as the whistling thing dropped down, down, down. Far away, she heard the uproarious crash as the object hit the trees and came in hard. Cracking branches, snapping limbs, and the dull pile of something slamming into the soft earth of the pine forest where the object had come to rest. June couldn't see where it had hit, but she knew enough. Focus. She closed her eyes and pictured the forest. The intuition came easily now. A year of practice made this second nature to her, as much as flying or swinging her hammer. The world came unglued. She would never, ever really get used to that feeling. When the world put itself back together, June was standing in the pine forest. All around, the smell of the trees sat heavy in the still night. Beyond the gentle edge, there was the thick, sweet smell of sap from newly wounded pine trees and the acid burn of scorched needles. Ghost lights of small fires dotted the forest, and June followed them in, using her wind to draw in dirt to extinguish them one by one as she sought the trail left by the falling object. It wasn't hard to find. It had hit the top of the tree line and come in hard, breaking branches and snapping trunks with wild abandon. The forest was a younger one, devoid of any of the truly massive pines that might have stopped the thing's descent. Instead, they all yielded into splintered shards that now dotted the forest floor. The path cleaved lower and lower, until at last June saw the impact of the pine needle carpet that carved into the soft loam underneath. a streak carved dull and dark that she could barely see by the light of the moon and the stars. It was so dark in the forest, but June walked forward, moving by the vague light from overhead and tracing the path the falling thin had hewn for her in the soft dirt. At the end of the newly formed road, she saw it. June dropped all pretense of calm and ran forward, stumbling on the chewed-up ground and almost falling. She stumbled in, her hands piling into the soft dirt and coming back covered in a mixture of earth and pine sap that smelled strongly and stuck to her skin. No, it can't be! The vague shape of the thing began to resolve itself in the darkness. A metallic frame that had once had wings. They'd snapped off somewhere in the fall. The automatic safety systems had engaged, forming a dull metallic cocoon around the occupant of the glider frame. It still hissed and popped, hot from the re-entry, but rapidly cooling. Be okay! Be okay! She chanted the command to herself, but not at herself. She was in front of the hissing metal thing now, lying half buried in the dirt. Another hiss, a pop, and the escape hatch half-heartedly tried to open. It was jammed on something. June focused into herself, drew in the wind and launched it full force against the escape hatch. With a shriek of grinding metal screams, the hatch was ripped aside and flung into a nearby pine, battering the trunk with a dull noise and then falling silently into the soft bed of pine needles below. June was at the hatch looking down. The emergency lighting shone dull red within, flickering and fading, but enough to clearly make out the occupant, still harnessed into her safety restraints. She looked so much different than the last time June had seen her, gaunt and stretched thin from the lack of eating, her eyes sunken and strangely hollow. Her glasses had come off in the crash. Thank God she was still breathing, still moving, trying to free herself, but she was so weak. "Terezi!" June shouted as she leaned in the hatch, heedless of the still-hot metal that tried to singe her skin. It would be red in the morning, but June didn't care. Terezi Pyrup groaned and tried to undo the safety restraint, but she was so much weaker than June remembered. She could barely work the latch. June leaned inside, pushed the tab on the buckle, and scooped Terezi up. She was so much lighter than she remembered her being. "I tried so hard." Terezi was sobbing as June pulled her from the wreckage of the glider frame. "Tried so hard." A shake, a cry that June felt on her chest. June wasn't sure how safe it would be to stand near the wreckage. She was pretty sure that these things only suddenly exploded in movies, but pretty sure wasn't very sure. She lifted Terezi onto her shoulder and gathered the wind around her again, lifting off the ground and brushing up through the pine forest again. She didn't want to try zapping around, not with Terezi so weak. "I knew," she heard the whispered voice in her ear, close enough to feel the hot breath against her neck as it was said. "I knew you'd be the first one to find me." And that was all. Terezi fell silent and her breathing shifted into a ragged measure as she passed out. June held her close, perilously high above the heavy pine scent of the forest, and carefully flew her to safety. It's funny that the people that talk in the really stereotypical accents that I've seen are all the ones in Oklahoma, not Texas. I live in Texas, and it's like the people in Oklahoma sound like Sandy Cheeks from SpongeBob in some cases. Chapter 2, Starfell. Also, unlike many of my stories, this is all from June's point of view. This doesn't switch point of view per chapter, and it's not first person. It's all like limited third person POV. Clear of the forest, June set Terezi down gently on a grassy hill and set to watch for fires springing up in the distance where she might have missed a spark here or there. The dry pine needles were a natural tinderbox after all. June felt uncomfortable with the idea of leaving the potential for an all-consuming forest fire, but she also felt uncomfortable leaving Terezi alone. So she split the difference and watched, and waited. After 20 minutes, June was sure that nothing was going to set the night ablaze, and she turned her attention back to Terezi. Terezi Pyrup, who had gone out into the depths of space looking for Vriska's circuit, who had returned by herself. June wanted to say empty-handed, but it felt too on the nose, given the circumstances. Because for all the harm that Vriska had done, and perhaps could still do, in spite of all that, June missed her. And if Terezi was back now, after everything, Vriska's dead. Or maybe not dead in the sense of finding a body and holding a funeral, just kind of gone. Gone in the sense of never getting closure and not knowing for sure what even happened. That's so much worse. Terezi lay on the ground, still out cold, and taking soft, slightly ragged breaths that could be heard as much as seen. The rasp of the air in and out of her lungs, no doubt injured by the time spent out in space and the harsh return to Earth's sea. She looked as though she would be stirring fitfully, but she didn't have the energy for it. She looked frail for the first time that June had ever seen. From the beginning, Terezi had always exuded an intense energy that seemed inexhaustible. Now she was gaunt and worn, sunken in places that she shouldn't be. Her clothes were dirty and she smelled bad, an odor that was vaguely, but not completely familiar. What was she supposed to do? Of course she hoped that Terezi would come back someday, had hoped and thought and even tried praying about it once or twice, for all the good that did. Terezi had stayed out there in the black beyond and remained forever out of reach, until now. She'd held Terezi's limp, emaciated form in her arms, and she didn't know what to do. June pulled out her phone. Roxy at Tipsy Nostalgic. Got an emergency here. Need you down here like now. Sup, windy girl. Terezi just came back. I'm up on the hill where we always go to stargaze. Yeah, no shit. Be right there, girl. Hold on to your butt. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Terezi was supposed to come back with Vriska, and everything was supposed to be okay. Vriska'd pull herself out of worse. June had helped with that. She'd helped save her so she could go back and... June was crying. The tears burned her eyes and fell in droplets to patter on Terezi's sallow face lying in her lap. Vriska's dead. It was so paralyzingly real now. Just like before. Just like waiting to meet her for all that time, only to find out she had been dead already. Except now it was somehow worse. Because despite everything, June still thought of Vriska as her friend. Her friend that she'd worked to save. Her friend that had done so much bad, but had the potential to do so much good. She was gone. Was a nothing now that would never face redemption or condemnation, but in the theater of the mind. June cried, cradling Terezi and shaking softly. Small and alone and afraid. Wait a minute, I'm dead? That's not possible. Honestly, I'd be fine with you suggesting an alternative at this point. This hurts to watch. I'm sorry, it must be hard for you too. No, fuck this shit. I'm gonna... Wait, where's my body? I'm so sorry. I couldn't help you this time. I wanted to. Then why not just fucking do it? Oh God, am I crying? Can I even cry? I'm sorry. I'm sorry. June needs my help. Terezi needs me. They deserve to be happy. After some time, Terezi's eyes opened again, bleary red stained with the ash of fatigue. She couldn't see June, but her nose twitched. Egbert, she groaned softly. June, I'm back. June smiled. Yeah, you're back. It hurt to watch her as she struggled to sit up, her hands grasping desperately at June's shoulder, clutching like bony claws worn thin with too many days spent without food or sleep. She leaned heavily forward on June's chest, her breathing ragged and halting. Everything hurts, she murmured, almost to herself, and June could almost feel the pain, could feel how the ache spread deep into her bones, inside of her soul. The pain went so deep, so much deeper than the mere surface level of the muscles and bones. I know, June leaned in, cradled the troll in her arms. Terezi pressed in, sighed heavily. I never found her, June. That was all she needed to say. The rest was self-evident. June found herself crying again, tears seeping in well-worn channels down her cheeks. Thank you. A small voice. Not the usual boisterous Terezi. This was the worn-out Terezi, the Terezi that had put everything she had into her search and come back empty-handed. This was the Terezi who had seen the worst possible outcome, risked the odds anyway, only to have her hopes dashed against the rocks of the collapsing universe they had escaped from. June closed her eyes tight, and the tears flowed freely, tumbling down in miniature rivers. She felt a soft pressure on her lips, the slightest touch of moisture and warmth, and then it was gone. She opened her eyes to see Terezi smiling, a smile that held the weight of eons behind it, a smile that had peered into the abyss beyond time itself and found nothing at all. "Thank you, June, for waiting for me." Chapter 3. That Which Burns Brilliant. "I'll be honest with you. When you set out the last time, I thought you were a weak-willed sack of shit. But I underestimated you. You've got a real flair for dramatic purpose." "I beg your pardon?" "You're really leaning into this now. I'm almost proud of you. Were that an emotion I allowed myself to feel?" "Does he ever shut up, or is he always like this?" "It's pretty much like this all the time, yeah." "I liked him better before he ascended." "Me too." "I'm right here, you insincere asses." "It's like I can still hear his voice." "Oh, fuck you both." "Jade, we're coming in," June called out as they all stumbled through the door, with Terezi awkwardly supported between Roxy and June. From inside the house, June heard the sound of running feet. A moment later, her sister Jade appeared, wearing only her underwear and a faded t-shirt. She saw Terezi and her mouth dropped. "She's back?" June cried out and ran over to Terezi. "Are you okay? What happened? Did you find Vriska?" Terezi grinned at her, an expression that was mostly exhaustion. "Hey, cutie." Her head slumped down and the grin disappeared. "I've got her," Jade said. She waved a hand and Terezi floated unsupported in midair, groaning softly. "I'll take her to the spare room." June was glad her sister was home. Jade would come and go without much advance notice, and she was often staying over with Kanaya and Rose. Normally that wasn't a problem. June liked having the place to herself sometimes, or her and Roxy. But right now she needed help. She needed to know what to do. "It's okay." Roxy's hand was on her shoulder gently. June turned to look and saw her face smiling. "I'm glad you were able to go out and get her. Who knows what would have happened?" Warm lips pressed up against hers in the night. "Yeah, I know." June returned the smile and reached out toward Roxy. She took her hand and squeezed. "I don't know what happened, but she came back alone." The implication didn't need to be expanded on because they both knew what it meant. There was only one way Terezi would have returned by herself, and it was as if she was fairly certain Vriska was dead. "I'm not dead, though. Cog! If she just left me out there, where am I?" I've got some potentially bad news for you." They were sitting on the couch in the living room for a while. June lost track of the time, but Roxy was still holding her, so things felt okay. As okay as they were going to get right in that moment, anyway. She was worried about Terezi. It was hard to imagine that she could be so frail as she'd gotten. Even heading out to go find Vriska, she'd seemed so confident. Maybe she was just trying to convince herself. "She'll be okay," Roxy said quietly. She squeezed June's waist. "You know TZ's tough as a bag of rusty nails and shit." "I know." She was really trying to make June feel better, and June didn't want her to feel like it wasn't appreciated. But she hadn't pulled Terezi out of that wreck and felt how insubstantial she was and wondered how she'd ever managed to survive. "I know it's bad, Windy girl." Roxy leaned in and put her hand behind June's head. She tucked June into the hollow of her neck. Roxy still smelled faintly of the perfume she'd worn during the day. June closed her eyes, let herself drift back, and sighed heavily. "It's bad, but she'll be okay." "She's not okay." It seemed like the wrong word to use. Okay was when things were basically fine, when maybe you were feeling a little bit down or had a bad day at work, but everything was essentially fine. When you'd barely crawled your way back from a fruitless search to find your... What were Vriska and Terezi to each other? Friends? Rivals? Lovers? Probably all three, June figured. The troll relationship sometimes eluded her, and sometimes it was easier to just throw up her hands and admit it was complicated, rather than try to pick apart the nuances of something that wasn't necessarily her business. Cool. Hello, I believe you're Nick's in the Discord. Hello, my name is Celestial Ludenberg. So yeah, if I get done with this and the little thing I'm going to read after this, I will happily read your fic. I find them incredibly entertaining. So yeah, cool. Hang out and listen. We're probably about a third of the way through. We're more than a third of the way through this one because it's unfinished at this point. There we go. Lips pressed against hers in the night. And what did that mean? Are you okay, June? Roxy sounded concerned. June smiled at her. It was an I'm okay smile. She hoped it was, anyway. I'm just worried, that's all. The crash. You didn't see how bad it looked, okay? I'm just a little bit freaked out. Hands went in her hair. Gentle brown fingertips mingled with the black waves and massaging her scalp. June closed her eyes and let out a long, heavy breath. It's okay to be worried. Roxy's whisper was warm against June's ear. She nodded. I know. Why can't I remember anything? I'm seeing this. Is that even the right fucking word? Experiencing it? But things all run together and I can't see myself anymore. June's right, isn't she? I'm dead. So, about that. I don't know if dead is necessarily the right word. More like... Shit, I'm not sure how to put it. You better start trying, allow... Fuck! I don't even know how I can threaten you like this. I'm sorry to say that I don't think you can. Jade came back downstairs after another 20 minutes, and her face told June everything she needed to know before Jade even opened her mouth to speak. She's resting, Jade said softly. I mean, she really needs someone to take a look at her and make sure she's not dying or something. I'll call one of the troll docs in the morning, June replied. They'll know what to do. No, that's cool. I don't mind. I check chat periodically, but it's on the side of my screen, so it's mostly just like it blips, and I notice that something has happened. The look on Jade's face changed. She shifted her eyes to the side and fidgeted. I'm not so sure about that. Jade? June narrowed her eyes and stared at her sister. What is it? Jade refused to meet June's gaze. This is going to sound weird, but I don't know if a doctor can help. There's something odd about Terezi. Odd? June wished she'd be more specific. Now wasn't the time. I'm sorry. Jade's voice was pleading. I wish I could say more, but it's more a feeling than anything else. She doesn't smell right. Doesn't smell like she did before. And not just because of the whole almost dying thing. It's like something out there changed her. I don't know exactly how. Maybe Jane can help her. June didn't see much of her grandmother. She wasn't even sure how that worked exactly, so she usually ended up just calling her a cousin. Jane had briefly flirted with the idea of running for political office before deciding it was a ridiculous idea and deciding to train as a doctor. A fucking doctor? Are you serious? You think that Jane Crocker, heiress to the Crocker Corp brand, is going to be satisfied as a mere doctor? I must concur. It seems out of character. Oh boy, you're back now. Both of you. Great sense of timing, by the way. Very cool to interrupt like that. You're being sarcastic. Give the cherub a prize, people. They figured it out. I still don't believe it. Of all the things, not a CEO or a powerful politician, but a nobody-ass doctor. So, did ascending to your ultimate self just make you a complete jackass? Because you were friends with Jane. You knew her during the game. When she was so concerned with trying to heal all her friends, you know, like a doctor. The ultimate self can't be conceptualized in such simple terms. To put it in a way that your small brain would be able to understand, I've developed an awareness of my own existence so thorough that my very perception of reality has been altered. To view me in light of what I was is, at best, pure folly. In truth, I'm the embodiment of something far greater than the sum of those individual component parts. The Dirk who awoke within the game, the Dirk who saw his friends die, the Dirk who ultimately fought to win the game, the Dirk who... It occurs to me that you still exist in this timeline. Not whatever you are, but a normal-ass Dirk who's playing soccer with Jake and knows that their friend Jane is a goddamn doctor. I refuse to acknowledge his existence, just as the most powerful gaming PC ever built refuses to acknowledge the existence of a single capacitor within its overall circuitry. Oh my fuck! Can you please shut up and stop talking? I'm having an existential fucking crisis over here, and all I hear is you going on about stupid hoofbeat shit. I don't remember you being this in love with your own fucking voice.
It was different before. We've both changed. For the better? For the worse? Who's to say?
Oh, it was absolutely for the worse.
It's as good an idea as any.
Jane nodded, finally meeting June's gaze. Her sister didn't look happy, but she at least looked like she thought the plan would probably work.
Jane's brought folks back from a lot worse, that's for sure.
Jade ruffled her hands through her mane of deep black curls and stretched. Her back popped, and she groaned.
Look, June, I'm exhausted. I was working all day, and I wasn't expecting Terezi to pop back in like this. I'm going to bed, okay? Terezi will be fine until the morning.
Okay, sure. June nodded to her sister, who nodded back before wandering off to catch some sleep.
I gotta get going too, Windy girl,
Roxy said quietly.
But if you need anything, just let me know, and I'll come right over.
Roxy leaned in and kissed June on the lips, a touch of warmth and moisture that ended too soon. June smiled.
Thanks, Rox. I'll let you know.
June was alone once again, Jade and Terezi asleep and Roxy off to go to bed. June pulled out her phone, not knowing exactly what she was going to say. Rose, at Tentacle Therapist.
Rose, whenever you see this, Terezi is back, but she's not looking so great. Just wanted to let you know, okay? Rox and Jade helped get her to bed. I'm going to ask Jane for help, too.
Jane, at Gutsy Gumshoe.
Hey, Jane, I need a huge favor here. Terezi came back, but she's looking kinda, like she's maybe dying? I don't know. Can you please come over and look at her, please? I'll owe you, for real. That'll have to do for the night.
June leaned back into the couch and sighed to herself. She couldn't help but worry. She'd kind of gotten used to the idea of Terezi always just being out there looking for Vriska. Sometimes she'd get a text from her. Sometimes it would be a long time. There seemed to be some disconnect in time between the two places, and June always suspected that the black hole had a lot to do with that. But still, it had become a routine that had a normal feel to it. Now Terezi was back, and for the first time in a while, June felt genuinely afraid. What if she died? After everything she'd been through, that didn't seem as impossible as it once had. What if she didn't die? June tucked her legs up under herself and curled into a ball on the couch. Tears flowed freely, rolling down as she silently cried. She was worried and afraid for what would happen to Terezi. Now that the illusion of normality had finally been destroyed, all she could be was worried and afraid. Yeah, Dirk is a dingus. Alt Dirk is a dingus. Normal Dirk is like okay, but Alt Dirk is just a complete jackass. He does sound like a bad video game boss. It's like he internalized all of his like anime and video game fan stuff and just like made that his whole personality and mixed it with some like very like 101 level philosophy. He's like the weeb that, yeah, exactly. Old Dirk is like a gamer weeb that took one philosophy class and now thinks that they're like just so fucking smart. I like writing him in the way that I can just like dunk on him because I see him as the embodiment of a lot of the like sort of bad faith narratives in the Homestuck fandom, to be honest. Anyway. Yeah, just at least 2 philosophy courses, not just the one. He's learned what philosophy is, and now he's convinced he knows everything about it. Chapter 4, In the Small Hours. Yeah. Yeah. Level 50 Dirks. They hit the level cap. She had no idea how long she'd been asleep for, but when June heard the squeaky board at the entrance to the living room, she was up with a start. She'd fallen asleep on the couch. The room was dark, but for a sliver of light coming in from the kitchen light that they left on above the sink, she had no idea what time it was. In the faint half-light, June could see a figure standing in the doorway.
Terezi?
June stood up from the couch.
What are you doing up?
The shadowed figure stumbled forward, lurching through the darkness. In a brief moment of panic, June knew that she'd died and reanimated somehow. She'd become some kind of zombie, and the Terezi she knew and was friends with was gone forever. June's heart raced. What was she supposed to... Terezi flopped down next to her on the couch, the stiff leather barely giving way as she slid over toward June.
What the fuck did you do?
Terezi hissed at June, turning to her with an expression that was a mix of anger and resentment.
I was so close to finding her.
The fleeting irrational terror of before was replaced with a deep confusion.
I didn't do anything. You crashed your spaceship thingy in the woods near where I was, and I hauled you out. You're by yourself.
June felt a shove, and she was pushed back onto the couch as Terezi leapt to her knees, crouching over June. Her breathing was rapid and shallow, her hands pressed down on June's shoulders.
Terezi, what are you? Shut the fuck up, June.
She leaned over, her lips seconds from June's, and she collapsed forward, her whole weight suddenly pressing down on June's chest. It wasn't much. June realized once again how fragile she felt. Terezi sobbed, pushing her face into June's shoulders. Tears stained the edges of the same t-shirt she'd been wearing the night before. She had no idea what she was supposed to do. Was she supposed to hold Terezi? Say something? Comfort her? June settled for putting her arms around Terezi and squeezing lightly. She worried that if she were to press too hard, she might break something inside the troll. It was probably a nonsense fear, but June didn't want to take chances.
I tried so fucking hard,
Terezi muttered into June's shoulder, her hot breath seeping through the t-shirt and into June's skin.
I wanted to find her, but she wasn't there. Fuck, I'm right here! I'm right here, Terezi! Fucking fuck!
Oh, you're as eloquent as they come, aren't you?
Shut the fuck up! Why can't she hear me? Why can't I do anything?
Afraid you're in this for the duration. I wish I could tell you otherwise.
Don't you understand? I need to be there. I should have been there before, and now...
You can't.
I missed you.
Terezi had turned, and the breath was on her neck now. June shifted, and the room seemed to be getting warmer.
I wanted to tell you before. You're just saying that because...
The warm sensation of lips pressed into her neck. June's mind froze mid-sentence.
This is happening, I guess. Miss you, you clueless dork.
And without another word, Terezi rolled sideways onto the couch and passed out. June struggled to find her phone. It had slipped down and landed on the floor. Pulling it back, she saw an unread message from Jane. Jane at Gutsy Gumshoe.
Can you please come over and look at her, please? I owe you, for real.
Gosh dang it, June. Why didn't you just call? I'm coming for you now. Give me half an hour. Keep an eye on Terezi and make sure she doesn't kick the bucket before I get there. She peered at the time in the corner of the phone screen. 10 to 5 in the morning. Jane should be here soon. In hindsight, calling her probably would have been a better idea. It just didn't seem like an emergency at the time. Well, maybe June didn't want to see it as an emergency. Didn't want to admit that the same Terezi who had walked through hell to make sure that she could retcon the timeline, this Terezi, the same Terezi, felt broken and alone.
Oh, fuck you! Fuck all of you! This is such goddamn wriggler tear shit! I'll break out of this, and then I will fucking murder all of you!
That's me laughing, you see, because what you're describing is impossible. Even I have been as of yet unable to affect the timeline we see unfolding before us. Dirk is correct. I have also been quite unable to influence events.
Fuck!
15 minutes later, a knock on the door to the house signaled the arrival of Jane Crocker. June carefully extricated herself from Terezi's arms and walked to the door, her bare feet moving soundlessly over the wooden floor. She opened the door to see Jane standing there in pajamas, holding a medical bag. I came as soon as I saw your message. Next time there's a dang medical emergency, please use your phone as a dang phone for Pete's sake. She pushed past June and into the living room. Where's Terezi? June pointed wordlessly to the couch, and Jane bustled over, setting her medical bag down and kneeling next to Terezi. She put a hand on the troll's wrist and muttered something to herself. Her pulse is weak, and she's clearly malnourished. She glared up at June. None of you thought that maybe you should call the friend you have who is literally a doctor? The maid of life? No? Not ringing any bells? She sounded annoyed, and June felt herself flushing red.
Sorry, it was a lot.
What's going to be a lot is if she ends up 6 feet under because she didn't receive proper medical care. Jane reached into her bag and produced a blood pressure cuff and stethoscope.
She's going to need hospital care, most likely. There's a hospital nearby with troll doctors on staff. I'll call them in a minute and let them know we're coming right away.
June shuffled her feet and then looked down at them. She had very interesting feet, very interesting indeed. She liked the way the shade of brown contrasted with the light oak of the floor. Always thought it looked really cool. Very nice feet. The kind of feet that definitely didn't belong to a very embarrassed woman who just maybe almost let her friend possibly die because she didn't think to call instead of texting.
Is she going to be okay?
June heard the worry in her own voice. She was trying to keep it to worry and not panic. Jane sighed heavily.
Honest opinion? Maybe. Her pulse is weak. Her blood pressure is low, and she appears to be both malnourished and dehydrated. Can't you, heal her?
June could feel herself starting to shake.
What do you think I'm doing? I've been trying to heal her since I started examining her. Oh, I thought it would be, glowy or something.
June's face was getting hot.
Sorry. Glowy?
Jane raised an eyebrow.
You're a grade A prime dork, June Egbert. You know that? It doesn't matter. There's limits to what I can do when she's this weak. And she's not God tier, so if she goes toes up, that's curtains for her. She needs to be in a hospital. Fuckity fuck.
Look, I know this is frustrating, but whatever this is you're trying to do isn't going to help.
Look, you can change things, right?
Yeah, I made some changes at the beginning.
Goddamn bullshit is what you did.
Shut up. Anyway, yes, I made some changes, but it's different here. It's different with you, like this.
Wait a minute. You tried to change this, didn't you? You tried to put me back in there at the very least. You goddamn bitch! You didn't even say anything, but you...
It didn't work.
What?
I said it didn't work. I tried to shift things so you were back on Earth C, just showed up with no real explanation, but that just kind of didn't work. Like something was blocking me from doing it. Then I tried to change things in the past so you never went into that black hole, but that didn't work either. Every path that stretched out either had you in the black hole or it had everyone else dying, or most people dying, or you dying. This was literally the best possible outcome I could get. I'm so sorry.
Okay, I just talked to admissions. They've got a bed ready for her, and we're going to fly her over, right the heck now, okay?
Jane said it in a way that suggested there wasn't any room for discussion on the matter. June was glad. She didn't want Terezi to die, didn't want Terezi to be hurt. She'd spent so much time wishing that Terezi could come back, but now she was back and everything felt so wrong. She wasn't supposed to come back by herself like this. She was supposed to come back with Vriska. And then they could all be happy together and build a life together and everything would be fine. It wasn't that simple. Nothing was ever that simple.
Thank you.
June's voice was tiny in the echoing living room. Terezi was still on the couch, not sleeping but genuinely passed out. Jane was right. She needed to be in a hospital.
I mean it. Thank you.
June walked up and hugged Jane. She felt Jane pat her back.
Yeah, you're welcome. Let's just get her to the hospital first, okay? You can thank me when she's feeling better.
Oh yes, this is the chapter. Trigger warning, this chapter deals with suicide. Chapter 5, In Hospice. It was too cold in the hospital waiting room. June wondered why they had the air conditioning up so high. Maybe it was better for the patients. That seemed wrong, but June wasn't a doctor. She should ask Jane about that. Jane, why do they keep it so fucking cold in here? No, that was too much. June shifted in her seat uncomfortably, hoping that someone would tell her what was going on. She already felt bad enough about not taking Terezi into the hospital, and now she had to wait to even know if her friend was okay. To Roxy, at Tipsy Nostalgic.
We're in the hospital now. Jane and the doc took Terezi into a room and gave her fluids and stuff, I guess. I don't know, whatever trolls need. You doing okay? What do you mean? TZ was your friend. Our friend. But more your friend. She'll be okay. I'm sorry, I'm just tired is all. I got 3 hours of sleep and Terezi woke me up right before she passed out and we had to take her to the hospital. Take care, Windy girl. KK? I love you. For reals. I love you too, Rox.
When June looked up from her phone, she saw a doctor standing there in a set of scrubs. The doctor was a nice troll woman with a cute round face that reminded June a little bit of her Radia, but with much smaller horns and shorter hair. She let them in right away, and Terezi was placed on a rolling bed and immediately hooked up to an IV full of something. June wasn't sure what trolls needed when they were dehydrated and malnourished, but she imagined the doctor, her name was Ketsi, knew a lot more than she did about that kind of stuff.
She's resting comfortably, but it's good you brought her in when you did.
Ketsi was checking some notes on a clipboard that June assumed were a chart of some kind.
Any longer, and she might have suffered permanent damage.
Jane was glaring pointedly at June, who shuffled her feet and muttered a barely audible, "Sorry."
In any case, we'll keep her here for observation for a couple days, and then she's free to go home.
Ketsi smiled hopefully and walked over to attend to her other patients. It was late, but June wasn't getting back to sleep. She fidgeted again in the waiting room chair. Why did they make these things so uncomfortable? Why'd they copy the worst parts of Earth hospitals for this? She thought that something you're forced to sit in for long stretches of time should at least be comfortable to sit in. Why not have waiting recliners instead of waiting chairs?
Look, I'm sorry.
Jane's voice was smaller than it had been back at the house. She sounded tired more than anything, a bit worried.
It's just... Terezi is my friend too, and I appreciate you texting me the way you did, but gosh freaking darn it, June, you need to be more careful with her.
June blinked.
What? She's not a god like us. Maybe trolls are a little tougher than humans, but she's still mortal. There's no conditional here. If she dies, she's dead.
Jane was sitting back in her own uncomfortable chair and frowning, her brows furrowed and her lips pursed. This was hurting her a lot more than she let on. June realized she'd fallen into a kind of half-sleep when her phone pinged and drew her back into full waking. She blinked and looked at the screen, the unfamiliar name resolving itself as she adjusted her glasses. From New Alternian Hospital at South Alternia Public 3939291. Saturday, 7:35 a.m. A patient with you listed on their approved visitor list, Terezi Pyrope, has approved visitors. Visiting hours are between the hours of 8 a.m. and 6 p.m. New Alternian Standard Time. Please check in with a charge nurse before visiting. This is an automated message. Please do not reply. Suddenly, she was wide awake and shaking Jane, who had fallen all the way asleep.
Jane, wake up! Terezi's up!
Jane blinked thickly and groaned.
Oh, Jesus crackers, June.
She retrieved her own glasses from where she'd tucked them in the neck of her shirt and peered at her watch.
It's not 8 yet. You can't visit her. Aren't you a doctor?
June reached out and put her hands on Jane's.
Can't you get us in just a little bit early? Please?
Fine. Jane rolled her eyes and stood up.
Oh, shoot, those chairs are so uncomfortable.
They didn't talk on their way up to the room where Terezi was resting. June could feel the excitement building. Even though her friend had been in bad shape, she was okay now. Terezi was going to be okay. She kept thinking that all the way up the elevator and down the corridor to Terezi's room, past when Jane waved her ID at the charge nurse, who nodded and let them by without a word. Right up until June opened the door, ready to greet Terezi properly. Right up until she saw Terezi's face. Every trace of the excitement died in June's chest. She stopped in the doorway, then approached slowly. Terezi was staring straight ahead with eyes that looked sunken and hollow. Regardless of the damage done to her eyes or the fact she couldn't see, Terezi had always had a certain look to her, a kind of almost playful edge to everything she did. It was gone. She looked like she'd worn herself out just by existing.
Hey, June. Hey, Jane. Give us a minute.
Terezi's voice was far away and underwater. Jane nodded and retreated back through the door, closing it behind her. June walked closer, feeling apprehensive to come too close to the bed. Something about it felt wrong, somehow.
Hey, Terezi. How are you?
She couldn't finish the sentence. It was obvious. Tears were all over Terezi's cheeks, and she was trying desperately to be quiet, but she was sobbing.
I couldn't do it.
June pulled up a chair, the same uncomfortable kind they had downstairs, and set it next to the bed.
I tried so fucking hard, June.
Her eyes were pleading with June to just believe her.
I tried everything I could think of. I looked all over. Everything's collapsing into the center and blending together now. I stayed as long as I could, and she's not there, June. Whatever happened, I think she's gone forever. No, no, no. I'm right here. God fucking damn it. Can't any of you hear me? Come on. Isn't this the part where she just senses that something's wrong? Either of them? Come on, you dumbasses. I'm right here.
Terezi shook her head as if she were trying to clear it out.
And I keep hoping that I get some kind of sign, you know? Some kind of anything.
She slumped in the bed and swallowed heavily.
I feel so empty now.
June reached out to take Terezi's hand, but she pulled it away sharply.
June, I shouldn't be around you or anyone. I'm sorry about last night. I wasn't thinking right.
Warm lips on hers, on her neck. June blushed.
Oh, it's fine.
June finished meekly.
Don't worry about it. Sure.
Terezi was trying to smile, but she just looked sad.
Can I do anything?
June didn't feel like it was necessarily the right thing to say, but she wasn't sure how to respond to this. Even with her own struggles with depression, this felt different.
No, it's fine.
Terezi didn't say anything else. She kept her hands drawn away from June.
Maybe just give me a little bit to myself, okay? I'm tired. Okay, sure, Terezi. I really do care about you, okay?
June tried a smile of her own, but it felt false.
I know.
By the time she and Jane got downstairs to the waiting room, June had more messages on her phone. She sat back in the horrible chair with Jane next to her, still looking worried. Kanai at grim auxiliatrix.
Jade and Rose have both let me know what happened to Terezi. Please rest assured that we will help however is needed. Terezi remains my friend, and I will always seek to protect her.
Thanks, Kanaya. I think she's going through a lot right now. You know, with Vriska and everything.
Indeed. I had suspected that she had returned empty-handed when Rose saw your original message. Jade confirmed that this was in fact the case. I must confide in you that I suspected this might happen eventually, and I feared for Terezi's well-being if it was the case. Please, watch over her.
Will do.
Rose at Tentacle Therapist.
I'm gonna ask Jane for help, too.
Sorry, June. I should have replied sooner, but Jane said you two were going to the hospital. Shit, is Terezi okay?
I don't know if okay is the right word for it. She's feeling really bad about Vriska, and she was really upset when I talked to her a few minutes ago.
She's nothing if not resilient. That is, that bitch is tough as shit. She'll be able to get through this.
I'm really not sure about that, Rose.
It wasn't fair, any of it. June had some complicated feelings of her own about Vriska, but she at least deserved the chance after everything. Terezi deserved a chance. They deserved a chance together. Whatever came of it, and whatever the end results were, to be sentenced to whatever this was, it seemed a cruel fate. The loudspeaker overhead came to life, blaring a static message. Code blue to room 212. Code blue to room 212. Jane's eyes grew wide as she stood up so quickly it knocked her chair back. Holy shit, that's Terezi's room! Before June could say anything, Jane was off running, and she scrambled to catch up, panting and calling after her.
What's happening? What's code blue, Jane?
Jane didn't answer. She pushed through the nearest set of emergency stairs and took them two at a time until she reached the second-floor landing. Pushing through the door, she ran down the hallway. A group of nurses were rushing toward the room. Move! I'm one of her doctors! Jane called to the group. They parted and let her through, with June trailing slightly behind. The door to Terezi's room was open. June could see a group of 2 nurses and Dr. Ketsi standing around the bed, moving frantically. She could hear snatches of what they were saying, shouting, muttering.
Curtain rod? I don't know.
Calm the fuck down and give me the paddle.
Clear. I don't know how she got it. Shut up. Clear. It's not.
June stepped in after Jane and stopped. Terezi was on the bed, lying there in a tangle of sheets with her hospital gown open. The doctors and nurses were standing over her, holding a set of paddles that June recognized from movies. Near the bed, a heavy curtain rod had a rolled sheet still hanging from it. Terezi's neck was a violent, angry shade of gray teal.
She's not responding. Charge the paddles.
Cutsy's voice was the exact opposite of this morning.
I swear to God, I don't know. I checked on her and... Oh my God.
One of the nurses, a large troll with his hair cut short.
Get him out of here,
Cutsy yelled. One of the other nurses pushed the big troll back. Clear, one of the other nurses, all their faces blurred together now. Cutsy touched the paddles to Terezi's chest. There was a jolt. Terezi didn't move.
Fuck!
Cutsy stepped back, putting her hands to her face. She paced quickly to the side of the room, let out a strangled scream, then walked back to the bed. Without another word, she pulled a sheet over Terezi's face. The faraway dim eyes and angry teal bruise hidden away now.
Nurse, please make a note. It is 8:07 in the morning, New Alternian Standard Time, and I am officially declaring Terezi Pyrope dead.
The doctor didn't say another word. She walked out of the room with tears in her eyes. June felt her legs give way.
No, this isn't possible. I'm right here. Why can't any of you hear me?
This chapter contains additional discussions of suicide. If you're still with me after the last one, it is not as bad as that chapter was. Chapter 6, Just the Way Things Are. Cool. June was back in the uncomfortable chair once again. It didn't register this time. Everything felt numb and distant. She wanted to feel something, wanted to scream and cry and feel angry or sad or something. But it wouldn't happen. The tears refused to flow, and she just felt all hollow inside. Her friend was gone. How did she think of Terezi? More than a friend? Something different than a friend, anyway? She had wanted to figure that out. Maybe she wasn't sure now. Warm lips on her neck. A neck that was swollen and teal-stained. June shuddered and fought back the urge to throw up. The images danced together and June retched. She didn't want to think about this, didn't want to think about any of it, didn't want it to be real. She just wanted to lie down and sleep for a long time. Maybe she would forget about it. Maybe she could convince herself that Terezi was back out in space and just not answering her texts. Forever. She buried her head in her hands. Maybe now the tears would start. Maybe now she would feel something. Because she was performing the gesture. She was doing what people did when they were crying and grieving and full of anguish. People that felt empty inside didn't do this. They just stared out into nothing. June didn't want to be that kind of person. That kind of person hadn't really cared about her friend. June closed her eyes, wrestled through the image of Terezi's swollen neck and down into the inky blackness underneath. Dark beneath dark, her eyes shut as tightly as she could shut them with her hands pressed up against the lids. There was nothing here. No emotions, no feelings, just a sea of nothing.
Why can't you hear me? June! June, you goddamn flighty bitch! Open your fucking ears and listen to me! Why the fuck won't you answer?
I really don't think she can hear you at all. I don't think this is a two-way kind of thing.
Why the fuck not? I want to talk to her. It's bad enough that I don't want to talk about this.
After some time had passed, June wasn't sure how much. She felt a hand on her shoulder. June opened her eyes to see Jane standing over her. Her face was sunken and she'd obviously been crying. June, I'm so sorry. If I'd stayed in the room, I could have... She didn't need to finish the sentence.
Why did she do it? I don't understand. I want to feel something here, but it's just... I'm so confused. It doesn't even feel real.
June grit her teeth.
Why?
Jane looked away.
I wish I could tell you, June. The gosh darn thing is, I don't know myself.
She took off her glasses and wiped her watering eyes.
I just wish I could have been there to help. Yeah, I know.
June reached up to pat Jane's hand, and the loudspeaker blared to life again. June jumped. Someone else was dying. This was different. Dr. Ketsy to room 212. Dr. Ketsy to room 212. A pause, shuffling. Someone had left the mic on.
What do you mean off shift?
Another pause. Dr. Crocker to room 212. Dr. Jane Crocker to room 212. This is urgent. A sharp blat and the speaker cut off. Jane was looking down at June, her face lined with confusion.
I don't understand.
June didn't understand either. When they arrived at room 212, there was a group of staff standing outside the room talking in hushed tones. They all stopped as they saw Jane arrive. That didn't bode well. Something had happened. June couldn't imagine what had happened. Did something happen to Terezi's body? Maybe she hadn't killed herself after all, and there were signs of foul play. June didn't like the somewhat hopeful feeling that prompted inside of her, the eagerness to blame her death on something external rather than face the fact that her friend had suffered so badly from her struggle that she'd taken her own life.
Make a darn path,
Jane called out. The staff moved aside, clearing a path to the bed. Terezi was sitting up in the bed. She was rubbing her neck, but it wasn't a violent shade of teal anymore. It was the same smooth gray as always. June stared. Terezi was alive. She ran forward and threw her arms around the troll without hesitation. She hugged Terezi tightly and buried her hand against her now-healed neck.
Oh, God, I thought you were dead.
June's voice was muffled against Terezi.
I'm so sorry. I should have taken you here first, and I'm sorry.
Terezi patted her on the back.
Hey, I'm sorry, June.
Why was Terezi sorry? That didn't make sense. She was the one in pain. She was the one who needed to be helped. June didn't understand this. Not to be rude, Jane's voice cut in, but how in the blue heck are you alive? I saw the paperwork. I examined your body. According to everything I saw, you've been dead for, she checked her watch, an hour. More than an hour.
Jane, stop it,
June pleaded.
She's been through enough. I saw you die.
Jane's voice cracked and she started sobbing.
I saw your body and I felt all the warmth go out of it and you weren't there anymore. Now you're just sitting here like nothing fucking happened. Listen, Crocker.
Terezi sounded angry.
You can kiss my bulge with that shit. Leave me the fuck alone, since apparently I can't even kill myself properly.
Her voice was breaking too. June wanted to hold her, to tell her everything was going to be okay. If only she actually believed it.
What happened to you out there?
Jane asked, her voice low.
You're not the same anymore.
Terezi growled.
What happened is I lost my fucking mate spread. You wouldn't know how that feels like, would you? You goddamn bitch!
Terezi started crying. This time she didn't try to push June away. Instead, she folded into June's arms and whimpered.
Just leave me the fuck alone.
Jane shook her head.
I can't. Not after that. The hospital policy is to put you on suicide watch and keep you for 3 days of observation. Fuck, Terezi muttered. Do what you want, then. You always do whatever the fuck you want, right?
June didn't know if it was strictly true, but Terezi was angry. She didn't want to inject some petty squabble into something so serious.
Just go away, Jane,
Terezi said flatly.
Oh, thank fuck she's alive.
Probably on account of her narrative relevance. What? No, that doesn't even make sense. It's one of the core tenets of...
Shut the fuck up! I'm just glad she's not dead.
Which should raise some interesting questions regarding your own mortal state. After all, can any of us truly said to be alive? Do we exist as a singular conscious beings, or do we simply function as part of a cosmic gestalt?
I believe that I am a conscious being. I have thoughts and feelings.
Technically those aren't contradictory statements. You can be both a separate conscious being and part of a larger whole.
Blah, blah, blah. Shut up. Shut up, Dirk and Calliope and whoever you are.
Jane had agreed to pull the nurses out of the room as long as June was still in there, so she and Terezi were alone after the paperwork was filled out to officially note that the troll was no longer deceased as of sometime a bit after 9 in the morning. June felt emotionally drained, but she sat in the chair next to Terezi's bed and quietly held her hand. This time, Terezi didn't pull away.
I'm not gonna try again, she said quietly. It seems so overwhelming to deal with. Having to wake up every single day and face the fact that I failed and she's gone. And I just saw a way out. But that's not an option for me, I guess.
What happened? June asked. Terezi squeezed her hand and shrugged.
I don't know. I was hanging there and everything went all fuzzy and black, and then I was just lying in the bed and my throat hurt a lot. Then it didn't hurt at all. And when I woke up, I felt like I'd been sleeping for days.
That sounds like how it felt for me when I went God tier. It hurt so much at first, but then it was okay. And then I felt better than I had in a long time.
Terezi clicked her tongue.
I don't feel better than I have in a long time. I feel like shit. My neck doesn't hurt, but I'm still kind of sore, and I miss her.
Maybe she's still out there, June asked. The hope she felt saying it didn't feel in any way justified.
No, I don't think so.
Terezi stiffened up. This wasn't a subject she wanted to revisit.
Anyway, I don't fucking know why I'm even still here. I never reached God tier. I can't fly or use new and interesting powers, but I can't die. So that's something.
Something had happened out there when Terezi was searching for Vriska. Maybe it had to do with the black hole, or something about the breakdown of the universe itself. Maybe the fabric of reality had been pulled so far it was permanently stretched, at least in the case of Terezi Pyrope. She seemed to have inherited one of the key elements of God tier without actually being God tier. At least the first time around, anyway. Who knew if her next death would be her last? June wasn't really interested in testing the theory.
Anyway, I'm fucking sorry, okay?
June leaned her head down on the bed next to Terezi's arm.
Why are you apologizing?
Tears in her eyes.
I don't know. I made you all worry. Jeez. I don't even know why I care about all that, but...
She wiped her eyes in the back of her hand.
Also...
Terezi started to say something, but seemed to think better of it.
Never mind. We can talk about it later.
June sat there for a while longer, still holding Terezi's hand, and neither of them said anything more. Eventually, Terezi closed her eyes. 10 minutes later, she was snoring softly, and June let go of her hand. She checked her phone to see the time. Incidentally, she also had a large number of messages waiting for her. All right. Chapter 7, Catch Me Up. Sitting in the chair next to a gently slumbering Terezi, June stared down at her phone. Of course, her friends had been trying to get in touch with her. No doubt Jane had told them all what was happening. June groaned. She wasn't sure if she was ready to have these conversations right now. Still, she figured it was the least she could do, considering. With no small measure of trepidation, June opened the first message from Roxy. Saturday, 8:32 a.m.
Oh my god, holy shit, Junie. Jane just told me about Terezi. Fuck. I'm so sorry, baby. You know I'm here for you, right?
Saturday, 9:41 a.m.
Yeah, so about that. She's alive.
Oh, thank shit. I thought she killed herself.
She did? But then she came back to life? Like God tier, but not God tier?
Holy fucking shit.
Yeah.
From Kanaya.
Jane has informed me that Terezi has killed herself in her room. I cannot express how upset this makes me. She was my friend, June. She was my friend, and I miss her so much. I need to speak to Rose now. I am feeling very distressed right now.
Saturday, 9:46 a.m.
Kanaya, are you there?
Yes, June. I am here.
Good. Terezi isn't dead. I mean, she was dead, but then she just kind of came back to life, and no one's sure why. I thought maybe she'd gone God tier, but she says she didn't. I guess she might be wrong, but I don't know. That feels like a stretch.
I'm sorry. Did you say Terezi is alive? Terezi Pyrope? That Terezi?
Oh, goody fucking gumdrops. Just what everyone loves. A bunch of free-form dialogue in the form of a series of text messages, chat logs, or emails. The sort of thing that serves to plow the narrative along when the writer is too lazy, or in your case, too inept, to actually come up with manageable prose. I think I've figured out your problem, you know. Do you want to hear about it? Not really, no. You cling to an almost serialized style of storytelling, a literary methodology born out of days when writers published a lot of their longer works in chunks, broken down for magazines and digests and such. When you're paid by the word and your work serialized, the premium is put on hooking your readers and then keeping them coming back time and again. Enter, of course, the cliffhanger, the ending to a chapter or serialized segment that no one could look away from. Just look at how you ended Chapter 5, pure exploitative garbage, designed to pull on the reader's heartstrings and nothing more. I was under the impression that making people feel things was good. But there's a right and wrong way to do things. The right way of course, being your way. Yeah, I know.
Oh, God, will you two shut the entire fuck up?
From Rose, Saturday, 8:43 a.m.
I just spent 20 minutes holding a very distressed Kanaya. What the fuck? Is this really happening? You're telling me that Terezi comes back from all that and she kills herself just like that? I'm sorry. I don't know how to process this. I don't know what to say. I'd say that I'm trying to keep myself in check, to not go back to that bad place, but why would I? Who would I rage against in this moment of anguish? I miss her already, June. I don't know what I'm supposed to do about this. Kanaya she's not doing great.
Saturday, 9:50 a.m.
Excuse me, if this is some kind of joke or something, I will literally fucking kill you. Kanaya just told me. What the fuck, June?
I told her everything I know. Jane and I went up to the room and Terezi was alive. Her neck was all healed and everything, just like one of us got killed. Well, maybe not Kanaya. I don't know how the rainbow drinker thing works.
She heals, but it takes time. Are you perhaps suggesting that Terezi is a fucking rainbow drinker? How would that even happen?
From Jade.
Oh my God, June. What can I do? I just heard about it and... Oh God, I'm so sorry. I wish I'd talked to her more.
Jade.
9:57 a.m.
Jade, you're not going to believe it. Terezi came back.
What? What the hell? How?
I have no idea. She was just back.
She God tier?
No, that's the weird thing about it. But I don't even care. She's not dead.
Okay, but how is she doing? I can't imagine she went from wanting to kill herself to just being fine, June. Have you talked to her about it? Does she want to talk about it?
I'm staying in the room with her for now. She's sleeping. I don't want to force things, okay? She seems really upset about not finding Vriska.
I trust you, June. Just be there for her, okay?
Roxy, Saturday, 9:41 a.m.
Yeah.
Saturday, 10:12 a.m.
How you holding up, Windy girl? What do you mean? You just had a friend die in front of you? Then come back like an hour later. You got some shit to deal with. I don't know. I guess I didn't really have a chance to process it. Like, I felt so numb but couldn't do anything about that feeling, you know? And then she was just back all of a sudden. None of this really feels real to me.
Okay, just know I'm here for you, Windy girl. I love you.
I love you too, Rox.
Kanaya.
That Terezi?
Saturday, 10:23 a.m.
Yep, I'm just waiting until she wakes up to make sure she's okay. Jane and I brought her this morning, and then, well, everything happened.
Please allow me to relieve you of this burden to some extent. Terezi was my friend, and I would very much like to help.
You want to come change out with me?
I would like that very much. I will be there in 1 hour, in 1/2 hour.
June set her phone down on the bed along with her glasses and leaned forward, her arms forming a natural spot for her head to rest. She groaned and pressed her face down toward the sheets that smelled of detergent. This didn't make any sense to her, but she wasn't about to question Providence. The bottom line is that her friend was back. But Jade was right. All the problems didn't just disappear because Terezi had survived. All the guilt and pain that she was carrying were still there, and June wasn't sure what to do about it. Was she supposed to tell her everything was all right when she didn't really believe it herself? Vriska was gone, and there was nothing any of them could do about it. Part of her just wanted to escape, to run away and not come back. Roxy. Saturday, 10:12 a.m.
I love you too, Rox.
Saturday, 10:31 a.m.
You there, Rox? Yeah, sup? Do you mind if I come over to your place in a bit? Kanaya is going to sit with Terezi for a while, and honestly, I don't want to be alone right now. Oh my god, Junie. Shit, yeah. I'll be here for you when you get done, okay?
June put her phone down again, propped her chin in her arms next to the sleeping form of Terezi Pyrope, and waited. And that is all that's been written of this fic for now. It's going some places. There's a bunch of stuff I'm looking to explore with this one. Thank you. Yeah, so the idea that Terezi might have gained the ability to not die because she spent so much time in a collapsing universe where causality is ceasing to exist was one I kind of played around with in the Forever After AU. Like, there are comments sprinkled here and there about, like, how she might not be the same anymore. She might not age anymore. She might not die anymore. But it's never actually, like, played with because the Forever After AU went in a more kind of, like, like, interpersonal psychological direction. So a lot of the, like, powers stuff doesn't get talked about as much. But this version of things, I'm sticking a little closer to, like, they use their powers, they still have their abilities. Like, it talks about the mechanics a little more. They're still in a post-suburb world, but they still have a lot of the same, like, attachments. It also takes place much closer to Act 7. Like, this is set, like, within a year of Act 7, not the, like, 10 to 15 years later that most of Forever After is, so... but yeah, I'm going to go through a lot of stuff. This is about, like, Terezi dealing with her feelings, and someone made a comment on Twitter about how Terezi needs more friends and less lovers. And I was like, that's a really good point. I'm going to run with that idea. So a lot of it's, like, dealing with her feelings about, like, relationships and coming to terms with what happened, and also, like, Roxy's own struggles with her shit. Like, seeing Terezi kill herself and then come back, kind of, like, makes stuff click for her, too. It's, like, self-examination that it prompts. So they're going to kind of parallel each other, which is going to be interesting to write because I'm not doing anything from their point of view. So everything's kind of filtered through June, which is going to be a little different than normal. Normally, I stay really close to all the characters as far as, like, their point of view, but this one is going to be a little bit of a step back. So, yeah. And now I've got a couple of, like, little random things that I'm going to read that are short and also not, like, horrifically depressing. And then I'm going to read that Celestia Ludenberg thing, which I'm going to open first so I don't forget about it or get it dropped out of the chat. Come on. God damn it. Computer. So, cool. Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I will be reading next week. Next week, I'm probably going to go back to the the Jane Rezi detective story. Because even though it's a story about detectives, it's a very, like, anti-cop story. So I had skipped it for a couple weeks because it is fairly dark, but it's very, like, anti-authoritarian in its tone, which I like. It deals a lot with, like, corruption and power and stuff like that. So now that I'm feeling a little more, like, mentally with it, I think it's actually kind of an appropriate story for everything that's happening. Anyway, thank you for listening. So for everyone else that's hanging out, this one is a fun little story that is about friendship. It doesn't have anything bad happen in it. It's set in a vaguely defined post-Act 7 AU. It's a one-off. It requires no knowledge of anything. And just give me a second because my throat is a little rough after doing Vriska's like yelling parts. There we go. So this is badly described works of cinematic fiction. On the advice of Rose, Kanaya spends a night watching a movie with June in order to become better friends with her. But Kanaya promptly falls asleep during the beginning of the movie. What will she do?
Were you even paying attention?
June Egbert's voice drifted in from the edges of the world into the realm of conscious awareness. This fact was processed in a singular moment, and Kanaya Merriam realized that she had, in fact, been asleep.
I was indeed paying attention to this Earth movie that we were watching.
She smiled, a single fang poking below her quirked mouth.
A movie I absolutely remember the title and principal actor of.
She could feel the suspicious gaze on her.
Why'd you agree to watch the movie? The movie whose name you definitely know, with me.
Rose suggested that perhaps I did not have a sufficient number of friends. Her specific observation was that while I have a great deal of acquaintances, I lack very many people that I am truly close to outside of herself.
So you wanted to watch a movie with me to be my friend?
June grinned, her eyes squinting shut as she beamed at Kanaya.
That's one of the sweetest things I've ever heard.
Kanaya imagined that perhaps June's life had not been filled with an abundance of sweetness if that met her standards for one of the sweetest, but she refrained from saying it out loud. Instead, she simply smiled and replied,
Thank you, June.
June's face turned serious.
But I still don't think you were paying attention. In fact, I think that you...
June paused, and Kanaya imagined that this was for dramatic effect, but June's particular brand of humor was sometimes lost on her.
Fell asleep.
June raised an accusatory finger.
Such a suggestion is patently absurd, June.
Kanaya nodded.
I do not even know why you would suggest such a strange idea. Perhaps you are not feeling well?
June winked at her, an expression she found oddly charming in spite of, or perhaps because of, its silliness.
I'm as fine as sunshine, Can-Can.
This was too much. Kanaya wasn't used to the human concept of shortening the name in various fashions, often in ways that were silly, verging on absurd. In truth, it had a kind of intimacy to it that made her feel uncomfortable. Because in spite of her protestations to the contrary, Rose had a point. She didn't really have any friends. It was hard for her to feel like she could open up to people. Even here on Earth C, even here after the end of everything, she still felt guarded.
Very well. Then the matter is settled. I was definitely watching your movie.
What did you think of the part where they swapped the bunny's face with the other bunny?
Kanaya blinked. That didn't sound right, but she'd been telling a bit of a white lie. She had, in fact, been sleeping. She wasn't sure when she drifted off, but she awoke to find herself propped up against June's shoulder, and June was asking her if she was paying attention. Between the beginning part, when the odd-looking man with the nose was fighting in the rain and the credits rolling, all this was a haze of dialogue half heard through the clouded glass of sleep. She did not, however, want to hurt June's feelings. This was, according to Rose, one of June's favorite movies. Rose had informed her that despite the movie's cheesiness, June still enjoyed it immensely. Kanaya had wondered what a movie's tangential relationship to curdled dairy products had to do with anything, but she decided it wasn't an important detail to focus on. June was looking at her as if she expected an answer.
I thought that was very interesting, but I don't understand why it was necessary in the first place. Would the rabbit not have been perfectly satisfied with its own face?
Oh, that's the best part. You see, one of the rabbits was a terrorist who was trying to steal the Declaration of Independence.
Kanaya shook her head. This wasn't making sense. She didn't remember anything about a rabbit in the movie. Then again...
I apologize, but I do not know what a Declaration of Independence is. I mean, I do know what those words all mean, but it seems there is a specific meaning to it that I do not understand from context.
Oh, that's easy,
June shrugged.
It was a long thing that some old white men wrote on old Earth so they could feel better about owning slaves.
I see. And why would anyone want to steal something like that?
June nodded along, smiling. Kanaya had the feeling that she was maybe not being entirely truthful about the plot of this movie.
I think that was pretty clear from the movie, right? So the terrorists wanted it because it was secretly a treasure map to the treasure of Alcatraz. Really, Kanaya, it was all pretty obvious.
That did sound at least a little bit familiar. Or maybe June had been describing the plot of a different movie she liked? It was hard to keep everything straight. As much as she honestly enjoyed June's company, it was hard to invest herself in some of the things the woman loved. Just like Teresia and the Flarp Club she started. While it made Kanaya feel good to see the people she cared about enjoying themselves, sometimes the idea of finding enjoyment in those same pursuits was somewhat elusive.
I think I do recall that now, June. Yes, I am almost certainly recalling these facts. There was an old racist man who helped the younger, also racist man? Am I remembering the plot correctly? Your human movies are sometimes hard for me to follow.
Which was completely nonsense, but Kanaya felt the overwhelming need to spare June's feelings.
You sure are.
June grinned broadly, and Kanaya wasn't sure what to make of it.
That was Sean Connery, by the way. The old racist, I mean. He played a spy who really hated women in a bunch of movies. People loved him for it.
I do not understand human fiction at all sometimes.
She wasn't employing human sarcasm. Kanaya genuinely felt confused. The Alternian tradition had been to employ actors who were under threat of culling to provide the best, most convincing performances possible. Anything that came out poorly was promptly destroyed as subversive, and the cast and crew were all summarily culled. She had a hard time understanding June's ability to enjoy basically whatever media she sat down to watch. It was as if the woman could simply find something worthwhile in everything she saw.
What did you think of the subplot, by the way?
Subplot?
Yeah, the part where there are these two friends, and one of them doesn't want to hurt the other friend's feelings, so she keeps making up a bunch of crap to seem like she knows what the first friend is talking about.
Kanaya felt her face flush a deep jade, and she knew June would notice. She fidgeted uncomfortably on the couch, shifting away from June almost instinctively.
I do not believe I recall that specific aspect of the plot, if I am being honest.
There was a hand on her knee, soft and gentle. June was smiling at her.
I know you fell asleep, Kanaya. You were leaning against me the whole time, and you snore. Like, a lot.
Her face burned, and she wanted to look away.
I'm sorry, June. I did not mean to fall asleep so close to the beginning of your movie. Rose told me that The Con Air was one of your favorite movies as a teenager, and I wanted very much to show you that I value spending time with you as a friend. I was perhaps too comfortable next to you on the couch. I am sorry.
Her knee was squeezed lightly, and June was still smiling.
It's fine. I didn't care about the movie anyway.
Why not? Is it not one of your favorites?
She could feel her own brows knitting up in confusion.
Did you not end up losing out in this particular exchange by my not having stayed up to enjoy it with you?
Is that how you think I feel?
June's voice sounded hurt. Kanaya felt her stomach lurch, and she wanted to wrap June in a hug and tell her that no, it wasn't like that, it was fine. She was just so used to how things had been in Alternia, that so many people had used her in so many different ways, and she'd become cynical and guarded, that she just shut everyone down because it was easier than trying to sort through who was genuine and who wasn't. Better to keep everyone at arm's length. She could feel hot tears rolling down her cheeks.
No, June,
Oh, no, Kanaya...
And Kanaya felt her shoulders being wrapped in a hug.
It's not... I'm sorry. Rose talked a little bit about how it used to be for you. I shouldn't have said that.
It is, perhaps,
Kanaya murmured into June's arm,
something of a cultural misunderstanding.
Yeah, let's call it that. You're my friend, Kanaya. I wasn't trying to hurt your feelings. I don't care if you fell asleep during the movie. It's not a big deal. I still got to spend time with you. If you felt comfortable enough to fall asleep leaning against me, I figure that's gotta mean something, right?
She sounded happy. Kanaya smiled.
Yes, I believe I find this conclusion to be acceptable as well. I also would like to think of you as my friend.
For a while, neither of them said anything. Kanaya leaned into June's hug, into the softness and warmth of her friend's arms.
June?
Yeah, Kanaya?
Kanaya paused.
The things you described in the movie, the faces and terrorist rabbits stealing the decoration of slavery with the help of an old racist and all that, was any of that actually in the movie?
June laughed, a sound that came from deep inside of her chest and echoed out, clear and honest.
Sorry, I made all that up.
Oh, It all sounded rather fun, in a way that is both absurd and terrible, and I must admit to no small degree of disappointment that it is not real.
Me too, Kanaya. Me too.
Alrighty. How many people do we actually have in the chat? Okay. How many people are actually still listening? Violer. Actually, I shouldn't quote him. He's a fucking racist asshole. Vote now on your phones. According to Streamlabs, I have one viewer. My money is on... I don't know. I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to stop here or if I'm going to read this little Danganronpa fic. You know what? What the hell? If anyone is listening, cool. And if not, I'm going to put this on YouTube. I'm gonna read this little Danganronpa thing that my name is Celestia Ludenberg decided to send here. Cool. I'm just gonna kind of go through this. Okay, it's the finale. I'm just skimming through this to get a feel for it because I've literally never read this before. But it's short, so it shouldn't take long. Alright, cool. This is a Danganronpa fic by my name is Celestia Ludenberg, who is on the Discord server and occasionally provides fic to read on the Will at Homestuck live stream. And last time I did a reading, they provided me with a story which I read, so I would be happy to do it again. This is Danganronpa version 3 cartoon arc. Staff roll. Swampy of Love Handle is Kaid. Amy Rose as Miko. Sakura of Cardcaptors as Sumugi. Reflecta as Angie Yuta. Leonardo as Korikyu. Astro Boy as K1BO or Kibu. I don't know if you're supposed to say that or if you're supposed to initialize it. Crimson Chin as Kokichi. David Q. Dawson as Miyu Iruma. Basil of Baker Street as Shuichi. E123 or E123 Omega as Gonta Gokuhara. Wander from Shadow of the Colossus as Kaito. Maya Fey as Tenko. Luigi from the Mario and Luigi games as Ryoma. And Cat Noir as Rentaro. Melody as Kurumi Tojo. Our story begins where, under the pressure of the first blood perk, Swampy tries to kill the mastermind with the shot put ball, but ends up killing Cat Noir, who wasn't the mastermind. He ends up getting the same execution Kaid got with Monokid getting killed as collateral damage. Part 2 is a doozy. If this is Danganronpa 3, this is a game I haven't played, so I apologize. I am completely unfamiliar with this. I will, however, do my best. Luigi's body is found in the tank of a piranha, having been chewed to the bone during Amy Rose's escape tank trick. Hold on one second. I apologize. I have a child asking me to order food because that's just what happens on my streams. Anyway, during the class trial, it's revealed that Luigi has been killed by a blow to the head with a long stick from Melody. I cast Melody as Kurumi because, spoilers, Kurumi is Prime Minister of Japan and Melody is a princess, so... Just like Kurumi, Melody receives the Strand of Agony execution at the cost of Monosuke being claimed as collateral damage. See y'all in part 3, cowpokes. Reflecta and Maya Fey are found dead during Leonardo's seance ceremony. At the end, it's revealed that Leonardo impaled them both with his ninja katana. His motive was to get out and make sure his 3 brothers, Raphael, Michelangelo, and Donatello, were safe. Just like Korikyo, Leonardo received the cultural melting pot execution at the cost of Motodam. Part 4, scream if you want more. Okay. David Q. Dawson is found strangled dead. At the end of the 4th class trial, it's revealed his online avatar was flung off a building by Omega's online avatar, after Dawson's online avatar had been strangled by the toilet paper weapon. Version 3's logic, not mine. Just like Ganta, Omega received the Wild West insecticide execution at the cost of Montara. Part 5, Boys and Girls. The remainders, except for Wanderer, i.e. Astro Boy, Basil of Baker Street, and Amy Rose, find the Crimson Chin dead in a random garage. I couldn't think of anyone else to swap for Koichi for, okay? It's revealed that it was Wanderer who killed him with his Colossus killing knife. Just like Kaito, he received the blast off second ignition execution. However, no Monocubs are claimed as collateral, and he succumbs to this deadly disease, which he had in the middle of the execution. Part 6. Time, everyone. Oh, Part 6 time, everyone. It's revealed during the final class trial that Sakura from Cardcappers was Junko Inoshima in disguise the entire time, and that Danganronpa version 3 actually means Danganronpa 53. Astro Boy goes berserk on Hope's Peak through the end of Despair High School execution, essentially crushing Sakura from Cardcappers and Monokuma beneath a giant shard of rubble. No more Danganronpa cartoon arcs. Unless Spike Chunsoft releases Danganronpa version 4. We'll see about that. I don't know if they will or not. That was a fun little fic. I love reading those. I love reading them in like a super cheesy hammy voice too, because it works so well. You got all the characters mashed together, and the Phineas and Ferb crossover ones I actually really enjoy too. According to Streamlabs, I have one person in the viewing thingy. So I'm probably going to call it for the night because it's been almost 2 hours and I have to feed children. And then I'll probably write some more of Ways of Being so I can, I don't know, read it later or something. Anyway, yeah, so anyone that's in still, yeah, thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I had a lot of fun reading. I hope y'all enjoyed the story. I'm having a lot of fun writing it. It gives me a nice tonal change from writing Plasticine Soul, because they're very different stories. So yeah, I got a few things in the works. In addition to the 2 stories I'm working on, I have some other projects. I have another episode of the podcast is coming out in a couple of weeks, of the Alabaster Bible, which is gonna be a neat one. It's very thematically appropriate for what's happening in our world. And it's not in the least bit subtle. And I've got some other stuff I can't talk about right now, but I'm very excited for. And I've also started doing the Kanaya Advice Twitter. So go to Ask Kanaya at Twitter and ask Kanaya questions to get answers in voice-acted form. That's just a fun little project because it's really easy to do quickly and it's fun. It's just something I can do on the side. Anyway, thank you all for listening. I had a good time. And I will see y'all next week at the same time. Bye.